Elden Ring, we're doing a comparison. On the left, we have Xbox Series X. On the right, we have Xbox Series S. There are going to be many different clips of different scenarios, showcasing the two in action so that we can have a comparison between them in regular traversal or also combat scenarios. So this is going to be really in-depth, and it's a lot of work to put together, so liking the video is great. Subscribing is great as well. Lots of great Elden Ring content will be available on the channel. So the first thing to note is that in the quality mode and the performance mode, so in all modes, there is a target of attempting to hit 60 FPS. That's not really achieved no matter where you go. So when we're going to be talking about the quality mode on the Series X, we're getting about 15, 20 FPS. So it's like 40 FPS or so, 45, 50 FPS. On the Series S, it's more like 30, maybe 40 FPS at times. So it's like, you know, kind of again on the Series X side of things, it's about 20 FPS less than we should be getting. On the Series S, it's about 25-ish. You know, again, it varies based on the scenario and where you are. When it comes to the performance mode on the Series X, we are getting, you know, 50-ish FPS. It's kind of stuttery at times, you know, it goes up and down a bit. I do suggest having a game mode setting. If you're playing this on either of the platforms, it does help quite a bit, but it doesn't make it perfect as well. And then on the Series S for the performance mode, again, it's, you know, very similar. It's like 40 something, 45, 50 FPS or something like that. So there are going to be dips that are noticeable when you are playing the game. When it comes to the visual fidelity of the experience, on the Series X, it is targeting a native 4K basically for both sides. It's dynamic though when it comes to the performance mode. So the performance mode is apparently something like 1800p-ish, you know, it's going to vary a bit, whereas the quality mode does actually hit that native 4K and aims to actually stay there. And then on the Series S, you've got 1440p as the quality option, and it does seem to stay at that level. And then when you go down to the performance option, you're going to see something like 1000p, but it still looks pretty good. Now, I did try my best to get the comparisons to line up, and while you might be like, oh, times of day and stuff like that, no, I've set the times of day to be the same for scenarios. It's just the weathering is so random in this game, which is cool. It really is quite cool how varied it is. But seriously, like, the background atmospherics just change insanely within this game due to, like, you know, wind or rain or some sort of weird gassy backdrop. It's actually, again, really, really cool when you're traversing the world. Like the world, it's completely different everywhere you go, which is quite neat. But at the same time, for comparisons, it's like, oh, so this, like, weird red glowing land seems to be pretty good for getting things similar. So the biggest thing you'll notice for me is the visual fidelity between the two versions. Obviously, there is quite a gap when it comes to the clarity of the picture between the Series X and the Series S. You know, the Series X is just a much cleaner, more detailed sort of image, but at the same time, the aesthetic of the game kind of helps hide the lower resolution of the Series S version more than you would see in other games where we have a similar gap, if that makes sense. So that's actually quite interesting. It does seem like the draw distance between both of them is actually very, very similar. You might notice a little less detail in some of the far, far back items and some of the stuff in the mid-range. But for the most part, again, the aesthetic and the design of it is very much keeping true between the two versions. I also do notice when I go to quality mode for the Series X and you look at the character armor, that is by far the most, like, really detailed, really, really high resolution portion of the experience. That, and when you're in, like, buildings, taking a look at the architecture in the quality mode, you definitely do notice the, you know, again, the sharpness and some of the terrain details a lot more. So you will notice that there is bits of pop-in on grass between the platforms as well. You're kind of noticing that on both sides. But it's actually You know, it's not something you're really going to notice when you're doing all the combat and stuff, but you will, you know, you won't see anything like trees or, you know, kind of buildings. The pop-in seems to be reserved for the little grass details that are, I guess you would call it the medium range from where your character are or is. And most of the time when you are moving again throughout the world, you're probably not going to notice it when you're playing, but as you're looking through footage here, it is, you know, quite noticeable to me in regards to the gameplay. And again, the rain and the weathering, a complete problem. But that's really all the details I have. You know, I think you're getting comparable versions between the two. I was actually quite impressed by what the Series S had to offer. And also, again, at times it seems like the grass stuff might be handled a little bit better with the Series S is a little bit lower resolution, I suppose you could say. Could also be the rain effects. It's, yeah, it's kind of an interesting title. If you're not familiar with it, you know, it's Dark Souls-esque, but open world, so you can go anywhere at any time. So I hope that kind of helped present a couple different biomes, a little bit of combat, a little bit of action, some still shots so that you can see the two lined up. And I don't have any more details past this point, so once again, liking the video is great, subscribing is great as well, and enjoy your time, or at least your visit, to the lands of Elden Ring.